You'll now be hearing the third and final poem from each student. We'll begin with our third poem, The Final Recitation by Neil Cathro.
More Lies by Karen Gottschall. Sometimes I say I'm going to meet my sister at the cafe, even though I have no sister, just because it's such a beautiful thing to say. I've always thought so, ever since I read a novel in which two sisters were constantly meeting in cafes. Today, for example, I walked alone on the wet sidewalk wearing my rain boots, expecting someone might ask where I was headed. I bought a steno pad and a watch battery. The store windows fogged up. Rain in April is a kind of promise, and it costs nothing. I carried a bag of books to the cafe and ordered tea. I like a place that's lit by lamps. I like a place where you can hear people talk about small things like the difference between azure and cerulean and the price of tulips. It's going down. I watched someone who could be my sister walk in, shaking the rain from her hair. I thought, even now, florists are filling their coolers with tulips, $5 a bundle. All over the city, there are sisters. Any one of them could be mine.
On the Harvest Business Review blog, in a November 2012 entry, contributor John Coleman says he's written in the past about how business leaders should be readers, emphasizing poetry as the most valuable genre. He quotes another business expert stating, "Poets are our original systems thinkers. They look at our most complex environments and they reduce the complexity to something we can begin to understand." With our last recitation from this student, here's Jessie Fuller.
The Albatross by Kate Bass. When I know you are coming home, I put on this necklace. Glass beads on a silken thread, a blue that used to match my eyes. I like to think I am remembering you. I like to think you don't forget. The necklace lies heavy on my skin. It clatters when I reach down to lift my screaming child. I swing her, roll her in my arms until she forgets. The beads glitter in the flicker of a TV set as I sit her on my lap and wish away the afternoon. I wait until I hear a gate latch lift, the turn of key and lock. I sit amongst toys and unwashed clothes. I sit and she fingers the beads until you speak in a voice that no longer seems familiar, only strange. I turn. As our child tugs at the string, I hear a snap and a sound like falling rain.
Poetry Out Loud has helped our next student appreciate what a valuable support network she has. She said, "From my incredible teachers taking time out of their schedules to help me perfect my recitations, to my family, friends, and classmates, they've all been supportive throughout this undertaking. Most of all, Poetry Out Loud has helped me find my voice, and I have found strength in the words of others. This has affected every aspect of my life for the better." With her third poem, here's Alyssa Moncure.
The New World by Amiri Baraka. The sun is folding, cars stall and rise beyond the window. The workmen leave the street to the bums and painters' wives pushing their babies home. Those who realize how fitful and indecent consciousness is stare solemnly out on the emptying street. The mourners and soft singers, the liars and seekers after ridiculous righteousness. all my doubles and friends whose mistakes cannot be duplicated by machines. And this is all of our arrogance, being broke or broken, dribbling at the eyes, wasted lyricists and men who have seen their dreams come true, only seconds after they knew those dreams to be horrible conceits and plastic fantasies of gesture and extension. Shoulders, hair, and tongues distributing misinformation about the nature of understanding. No one is that simple or priggish to be alone out of spite and grown strong in its practice. Mystics in two-pantsuits. Our style and discipline controlling the method of knowledge. Beatniks like bohemians go calmly out of style. And boys are dying in Mexico who did not get the word. The lateness of their fabrication mark their holes with filthy needles. The lust of the world. This will not be news. The simple, damning lust. Float flat magic in low changing evenings, shiver your hands and dance. Empty all of me for knowing and will the danger of identification. Let me sit and go blind in my dreaming and be that dream in purpose and device. A fantasy of defeat. A strong, strong man, older, but no wiser than the defect of love.
We know each of these participants devoted a good deal of time and energy to the memorization process. And I know that many of you feel familiar with these poems and may even be able to recite them yourselves after hearing them a few hundred times if you happen to live or work in the company of these young people. American poet John Hollander says, "We speak of memorizing as getting something by heart," which really means by head. But getting a poem truly by heart implies getting it by mind and memory and understanding and delight. With her final poem, here's Kara Wolf.
Try to Praise the Mutilated World by Adam Zagajewski. Try to praise the mutilated world. Remember June's long days, and wild strawberries, drops of rose wine, the nettles that methodically overgrow the abandoned homesteads of exiles. You must praise the mutilated world. You watched the stylish yachts and ships. One of them had a long trip ahead of it, while salty oblivion awaited others. You've seen the refugees going nowhere. You've heard the executioners sing joyfully. You should praise the mutilated world. Remember the moments when we were together in a white room and the curtain fluttered. Return in thought to the concert where music flared. You gathered acorns in the park in autumn, and leaves eddied over the earth's scars. Praise the mutilated world, and the gray feather, a flesh lost, gentle light that strays and vanishes and returns.
Poetry out loud is good for students and teachers alike. A Missouri teacher reflected on the project by saying the following: "This brings poetry off the page in a beautiful way for my students and me. This activity changed the climate of my classroom for the entire year. I've even memorized and recited a poem for students too," said the teacher. And that, to borrow from a famous poem, has made all the difference. This is the third recitation by Alex Hall.
Baudelaire by Delmore Schwartz. When I fall asleep, and even during sleep, I hear quite distinctly, voices, speaking whole phrases, commonplace and trivial, having no relation to my affairs. Dear Mother, is any time left to us in which to be happy? My debts are immense. My bank account is subject to the court's judgment. I know nothing. I cannot know anything. I have lost the ability to make an effort. But now, as before, my love for you increases. You are always armed to stone me, always. It is true. It dates from childhood. For the first time in my long life, I am almost happy. The book, almost finished, almost seems good. It will endure, a monument to my obsessions, my hatred, my disgust. Debts and inquietude persist and weaken me. Satan glides before me, saying, sweetly, rest for a day. You can rest and play today. Tonight, you will work. When night comes, my mind, terrified by the arrears, bored by sadness, paralyzed by impotence, promises tomorrow I will. Tomorrow. Tomorrow, the same comedy enacts itself with the same resolution, the same weakness. I am sick of this life of furnished rooms. I am sick of having colds and headaches. You know my strange life. Every day brings its quota of wrath. You little know poets like, dear mother, I must write poems, the most fatiguing of occupations. I am sad this morning. Do not approach me. I write from a cafe near the post office. Amid the click of billiard balls, the clatter of dishes, the pounding of my heart, I have been asked to write a history of caricature. I have been asked to write a history of sculpture. Shall I write a history of the caricatures of the sculptures of you in my heart? Although it cost you countless agony, although you cannot believe it necessary, and doubt that the sum is accurate, please send me money, enough for at least 3 weeks.
Remember how we've said this work makes us better thinkers? We teachers aspire to get students to high levels of rigor and relevance, to synthesize and evaluate, construct and apply their learning to the real world. One competitor who took this same stage last year described the effort this way. Like a piano piece you know by heart, the poem becomes a part of who you are. Sometimes the poem in the back of your mind affects the way you view your life. Other times, the events of your life affect the way you view the poem. To me, the teacher in me, that's proof that this brings us to higher level thinking. With her last recitation, here's Emily Solinger.
The Idler by Alice Moore Dunbar Nelson. An idle lingerer on the wayside's road. He gathers up his work and yawns away. A little longer ere the tiresome load shall be reduced to ashes or to clay. No matter if the world has marched along and scorned his slowness as it quickly passed. No matter if amid the busy throng he greets some face, infantile at the last. His mission? Well, there is but one, and if it is a mission, he knows it nay. To be a happy idler, to lounge and sun and dreaming, pass his long-drawn days away. So dreams he on, his happy life to pass content, without ambition's painful sighs, until the sands run down into the glass. He smiles, content, unmoved, and dies. And yet, with all the pity you feel for this poor mothling of that flame, the world, are you the better for your desperate deal when you, like him, into infinitude are hurled?
If you're enjoying the performances today and would like to see more, you can see video examples and a link to previous year's contests at MissouriArtsCouncil.org. This will also include a link to the national site for teachers' guides and resources and materials accessible for all poetry lovers, not just students and teachers. You can get to the anthology of these poems and more than 600 more as well. And you may even find that you need to memorize 1 or 2 or 3 also. With her third poem, Verniquia Foster.
The Golden Shovel by Terrence Hayes. After Gwendolyn Brooks. 1. 1981. When I am so small, Da's sock covers my arm. We cruise at twilight until we find the place the real men lean, bloodshot and translucent with cool. His smile is a gold-plated incantation as we drift by women on bar stools, with nothing left in them but approachlessness. This is a school I do not know yet, but the cue sticks mean we are rubbed by light, smooth as wood, the lurk of smoke thin to song. We won't be out late. Standing in the middle of the streets last night, we watched the moonlit lawns and a neighbor strike his son in the face. A shadow knocked straight, thou promised to leave me everything. The shovel we used to bury the dog, the words he loved to sing, his rusted pistol, his squeaky Bible, his sin. The boy's sneakers were a light on the road. We watched him run to us looking wounded and thin. He'd been caught lying or drinking his father's gin. He'd been defending his ma, trying to be a man. We stood in the road and my father talked about jazz, how sometimes a tune is born of outrage. By June, the boy'd be locked upstate. That night, we got down on our knees in my room. If I should die before I wake, Da said to me, it will be too soon. 2. 1991. Into the tinted city we go, weakened by the fire's ethereal afterglow, born lost and cooler than heartache. What we know is what we know. The left hand severed and schooled by cleverness. A plate of weekdays cooking, the hour lurking in the afterglow. A late night chant. Into the city we go. Close your eyes and strike a blow. Light can be straightened by its shadow. What we break is what we hold. A singular blue note, an outcry singed, exiting the throat. We push until we thin, thinking we won't creep back again. While God licks his kin, we sing until our blood is jazz. We swing from June to June. We sweat to keep from weeping. Wound on a diet of hunger, we end too soon. Thank you.
The National Finals judging pool is a who's who of the artistic community. Famous poets, art critics, arts advocates, and other champions in and for the arts are there each year. This year, the 2015 Poetry Out Loud National Finals will be at the Lisner Auditorium at the George Washington University, April 27th through 29th. Admission is free and open to the public, and the contest will also be webcast live at arts.gov. It's exciting to know that one of these young people will represent our state at the national contest next month. This is the last recitation by Maya Bryant.
The Mothering Blackness by Maya Angelou. She came home running, back to the mothering blackness, deep in the smothering blackness. White tears, icicle gold plains of her face. She came home running. She came down creeping, here to the black arms waiting, now to the warm heart waiting. Rime of alien dreams befrost her rich brown face. She came down creeping. She came home blameless, black, yet as Hagar's daughter, tall as was Sheba's daughter. Threats of the northern winds die on the desert's face. She came home blameless.
Our next competitor says she's come to love poetry fairly recently, citing Robert Frost as her favorite poet. She says, "This has been a wonderful experience for me. I love literature, and I've thankfully discovered the beauty of poetry recitation. I've learned recitation skills that I can use in all aspects of public speaking." With her final recitation, Caitlin Davis.
Silence by Thomas Hood. There is a silence where hath been no sound. There is a silence where no sound may be. In the cold grave, under the deep, deep sea, or in the wide desert, where no life is found which hath been mute, and still must sleep profound. No voice is hushed, no life treads silently, but clouds and cloudy shadows wander free, that never spoke over the idle ground. But in green ruins, in the desolate walls of antique palaces where man hath been, though the dun fox or wild hyena calls and owls that flit continually between, shriek to the echo, and the low winds moan. There, the true silence is, self-conscious and alone.
When students participate in this activity, it gets in their blood. Former competitors speak of gaining new confidence to pursue writing or spoken word performance after high school as a result of this participation. Students in the contest often are repeat competitors while still in high school as well. In fact, some of today's competitors were their regional champions last year too, and siblings of regional champions. We'll keep those connections anonymous for the sake of the judging today, but do know what you've seen today is good company. With the final recitation of the contest and his third poem, here's Sam Pointer.
A march in the ranks, hard-pressed and the road unknown. A route through a heavy wood with muffled steps and darkness. Our army foiled with loss severe and the sullen remnant retreating, till after midnight glimmer upon us the lights of a dim-lighted building. We come to an open space in the woods and halt by the dim-lighted building. 'Tis a large old church at the crossing road, now an impromptu hospital. Entering but for a minute, I see a sight beyond all the pictures and poems ever made. Shadows of deepest, deepest black, just lit by moving candles and lamps, and by one great pitchy torch stationary, with wild red flame and clouds of smoke. By these, crowds, groups of forms vaguely I see on the floor, some in the pews laid down. At my feet, more distinctly, a soldier, a mere lad in danger of bleeding to death. He is shot in the abdomen. I stanch the blood temporarily. The youngster's face is white as a lily. Then, before I depart, I sweep my eyes toward the scene, fain to absorb it all. Faces, varieties, postures beyond description, most in obscurity, some of them dead, surgeons operating, attendants holding lights, the smell of ether, the odor of blood. The crowd, oh, the crowd of the bloody forms, the yard outside also filled. Some on the bare ground, some on planks or stretchers, some in the death spasm, sweating. An occasional scream or cry. The doctor shouted orders or calls. The glisten of the little steel instruments catching the glint of the torches. These I resume as I chant. I see again the forms. I smell the odor. Then hear outside the orders given. Fall in, my men. Fall in. But first, I bend to the dying lad. His eyes open. A half smile gives he me. Then the eyes close, calmly close, and I speed forth to the darkness, resuming, marching, ever in darkness, marching. On in the ranks, the unknown road, still marching.
We genuinely thank you, students, for the valuable exercise that was today. I think each of us can honestly say we are changed by you sharing these poems. And I was talking to a friend of mine about having seen Billy Collins, who happens to be my favorite poet, next to Dr. Trowbridge, that is. Anyway, I got to see Billy Collins in person this fall when he was, or maybe it was this winter, not too long ago, when he was in Kansas City, and he spoke of how fiction writers like to look inside other people's windows and see how they move and how they live and tell about it. But he spoke about how poets like to stay near their own windows and look outside and tell what they see. And so as I've been watching these performances today, I'm thinking about my journey with this program. When I first began in 2008 with a student who was fortunate enough to be chosen as the state champion, and I got to accompany her to go to Washington, D.C., and then how I've been directly or indirectly associated with the program ever since. The complexity of poems these students chose today, I believe, is more difficult than we've ever seen in any other year. So I'm imagining what happened was these students seeing those makers of things, those poets, inside their windows looking out, figured out a way to invite themselves in. Sometimes maybe they had to coerce their way in. Sometimes perhaps they had to pick a lock to break their way in. I don't think any one of them walked through a wide open door. They didn't take the easy route to this project. And for that, I know they are changed, and we are too. And I've always said that I kind of felt like it was weird to have a contest like this, call everyone up, give a medal, and then say, second place, first place, let's go to lunch. So I feel like more attention must be paid to what just happened here. And because I'm an English teacher, and because I like students to wrestle with language and to think about the concise nature of good writing, as this event happened today, I created a 6-word story for each of these poets. It's a work in progress. It probably needs some revision, but I felt like there was something I needed to say to reflect on what we saw today. Neil, your 6-word story, asks what if brought us levity. Jessie owns her stage, embraces rhythm too. Alyssa, voice, a bell, rings solemn, clear. Kara, gentle force, tells stories, feels true. Alex, not afraid of own brave choices. Emily, women's voices shared, made me question. Vernaquia, small stature, open heart, important words. Maya, old soul this girl, richness, depth. Caitlin, poetry on her, through her, fluidly. Sam, smart, thoughtful honoring of poets' words. Thank you for the gift you gave us today. So now we have members of our Missouri Arts Council community to present medals to all of the competitors. I invite Nola Ruth to join us to the stage to present the awards. Students, we're going to ask you to just go ahead and line up here now for the awards ceremony. What we'll do, audience, is present the medals first. Students, as your name is called, please receive your medal and step back in your place so the audience can congratulate you one last time after all of the names are called. After the medals are presented, we will name the runner-up and the Missouri State Champion.
Okay, the first medal is for Neil Cathro from the Central District. Jesse Fuller from the Kansas City North District. Alyssa Moncour from Kansas City South. Kara Wolf from Northeast. Alex Hall from Northwest. Emily Sullinger from Southeast. Veronica Foster from Southwest. Maya Bryant from St. Charles County. Caitlin David from St. Louis City. And Sam Pointer from St. Louis County. And now, what you've all been waiting for. This year's runner-up is Melissa Moncour. The 2015 champion is Maya Bryant.